This episode of Talk Raytown is brought to you by Raytown Mayor Mike McDonough. Mayor McDonough retired from the police department in 2014 after 40 years of service. He was soon after elected mayor in 2015 and most recently elected to his third term. McDonough's love for Raytown is evident not only with his long record of community service, but he's been a resident for nearly 61 years.
I'm Zac Sweets, and this is Talk Raytown. Cue the music. I say that there's never any music, but you heard it for a second though. I thought, it's not just me. Well, welcome back. We are at Gnarly Hustle here in Raytown in the Foolish Club podcast studio, back at it again. And this week, I just want to say, first off, thank you to all the listeners and the viewers of Talk Raytown. On behalf of the Raytown Chamber, we've seen an increased amount of folks listening to the podcast, and that just really lets us know that we're doing something important, letting folks know something about their community, and hopefully in a digestible space. And so as we talk about community throughout this podcast, what better day to have this guest with us than today, because as I understand it, on this day, July 17th, 2024, we are celebrating the 74th year of the incorporation of Raytown in the city of Raytown in Missouri. And so we have with us today, join us to tell part of that story, we do have Charlotte Belger, the president of the Raytown Historical Society and Museum. And if you don't know anything else about Charlotte, and we just met, she is a spark of energy and is a joy to be around. And I know that several folks around Raytown will probably say the same, as she has been a longtime Raytown resident and someone who just really intimately cares about this community. Did I overstate?
Oh, that was wonderful, and I would hope to live up to half of that, Zach. Thank you very much. It's very nice to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit of a nerd. So I remember growing up as a kid thinking to myself, if I'm going to read, I need to read history books because at least I'm learning something. Now, I know a lot of people would disagree with me. Children, read whatever you want. But that led me to read a lot of stories of how did we get to today and being curious about that. And as we were talking, I realized there's a lot about this story of Raytown that I might not know or might take for granted. So take us back 74 years. What do we?
Well, I would first like to just comment on what you were wanting to read as a young person. In my life, history was the last thing I cared about because it seemed so boring. It was boring because you usually learned in the textbooks and in classroom events, the date they happened, and then they stopped talking about it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know the story. I mean, that's not enough to know. Then we go to the next event. So about 21 years ago, my husband signed me and our daughter up as life members of the Raytown Historical Society. He didn't join, but he joined us.
He knew you were curious.
Well, I don't know what he thought he'd do, but I became involved up there at the Historical Society, and knowing I didn't care about history at all, that didn't matter because a lot of the jobs I had, nobody needed to know that. But what I found out after I had been there not very long, that there were so many wonderful stories to be had in Raytown, especially about the people who had settled it, that were not being recorded. And they were, many of them were already passed away or about to pass away. And at that point, I thought, okay, here's something that needs to be done. And I like to do it. I like to get into people's lives. I love that. And I was kind of shocked to find out that they weren't very open to that in the beginning. And it was always, my life is just very plain and simple. I haven't anything interesting to say. I said, okay, that's what you say. Would you just let me ask you some questions? So we would start like that. And in a very short time, the answers became longer and longer and longer.
Sure.
And they were getting a kick out of doing this, and I sure was. So a lot of what we do at the Historical Society is to document these stories along with great old photographs, not only just of their family, but of this city as it grew. So that, in a large part, is what we have to share at the Historical Society. I also would have to say, as far as history goes, no one seems to be terribly interested in it until they reach a certain age. You are far from being that age yet, but that day will come.
Sure.
And you will be more and more interested. So as a result, most of the people that volunteer with us at the Historical Society are older people because, number one, they're interested. Number two, they have the time. And they're the most wonderful people in the world. We have the best members I can even say because they're willing to donate money to us, to work with us, to share with us. They're great. So how and why is Raytown here at all?
Well, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Because I'm curious. As I was listening, following, thinking about the individuals that went from, there's not much to tell, to some light being turned on, and the answers getting a little bit longer. What do you think kind of switched? What do you think you saw as you were talking to folks, and you could see folks go from no one cares to, oh, this might be interesting story to tell? What might have been stirring within them?
That's really a pretty easy answer because of the fact it was the same with almost all of them, and the switch that turned on was as they listened to their own answer. It was a little bit like, wow, did I do that? Was that part of my life? They were switched on by their own story, not anything I was telling them, because I'm not telling them anything. I'm just listening.
Sure.
So that's what I love about it. And they were in this little community, the people that lived here and settled here and stayed here are pretty, I don't like to use the word simple because that has another connotation, but they're hardworking, they're religious, they're honest, they're supportive, they're family people. They're just good people. And the fact is that when they see themselves in a little bit different light, it starts making them proud of themselves. And instead of sitting here like this, their posture changes. Their posture changes, their voice changes, their eyes change. So now they can come to the museum and open the big binders that we have there. Let's say we're talking about the Sweets family. Mm-hmm. We're going to take the Sweets family as far back as we can, and we're going to move you up as far as we can. So when your descendants come and look at these books, they're going to see all their ancestors, and some of them they've never seen before.
So, and this might be a little too philosophical. This is the Historical Society is not all just a backwards. This is a living history. This is a place for the living history of Raytown.
That's right.
So that we can all be a part of that and see how we've been a part of that. Maybe our family members or someone we know has already written this story that continues to be written.
Yeah, in the beginning, of course, we were only known as a place to get your wagons and your harnesses fixed, because we were 8 hours from Independence, where many of them had started their original trip. Now you have to understand that these are people who were coming in the 40s on. they had no experience with animals, wagons, harnesses. They knew nothing. They knew nothing except the fact that out west there was free land for them if they claimed it.
If they survived.
And true that, if they survived. So by the time they left Independence, it took a whole day. I mean, we understand that we don't have headlights on our wagons.
And I just want to clarify something. I think I misspoke earlier. We're talking 174 years. I might have said 74, but 107.
No. Okay, the reason you said 74 is because Raytown became a city. I'm sorry.
Okay.
74 years ago. No. These people are coming in the 1840s.
Okay.
Don't ask me to calculate that number.
We'll have our producer behind the camera.
That's a smart guy over there. Let him do that. Yeah, this was actually we are the second oldest town in Jackson County.
Okay.
After Independence. By the time these people were coming to Independence, they were coming by river, mostly river. Now they're in Independence. Now they have to get outfitted to go across these trails. This is months and months and months of a wagon train going across to Santa Fe, California, Oregon. It's a long, long trip.
Yeah.
By the time they got from just Independence to here, night was coming. A lot of their harnesses had already broken. Wheels were coming off their wagon. Hard to go with 3 wheels on a wagon. So William Ray set up a blacksmith shop
Well, looky here.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Raytown. 74 years. Happy birthday to you and many more. There's your official mayoral song.
Oh, my goodness.
And we've got a little something just for the podcast.
Why are you let yourself get wrapped up in this with him? You're so sweet. God bless your heart.
Have a marvelous rest of your podcast.
Well, one moment now. We can't have the mayor step in and have him just step back out. Let's get you a mic real quick. For those listening on the podcast, we just had Mayor Mike McDonough, the sponsor of this podcast, just come through. Now it's not a birthday wish to either of us. We're not nearly close. Yes. So, Mayor, what made you stop by today?
Well, I understood that Charlotte Belger was going to be here, the head of the Raytown Historical Society. So since this is a momentous occasion for Raytown, it's its 74th birthday that we spoke about at lunchtime today, correct? I thought it would be a good time to pop in and celebrate as part of the Raytown Historical Society and the celebration of the 74th birthday of Raytown's incorporation.
Well, I couldn't think of a better place for you to stop by at than Talk Raytown. So thank you very much. Are you both here to give us a little sneak peek of what the 75th celebration will look like?
Not yet. I'm just starting.
Okay. All right. Keeping that.
No. You don't get to hear that yet.
All right. I've got to go.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear.
Love you.
That's a great surprise. And it's wonderful to have
you
that.
You knew that was going to happen.
I might have, but I couldn't tell you.
Okay, so we're going to go back on the trail. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I forget where we were.
It sounds like though. Whenever I think about it like this, whenever I'm headed to say St. Louis, or maybe I need to go to Columbia, I have that one gas station on the edge of Jackson County that I stop at before I get on the road. You know, my last stop before my last stop, if you will.
Yeah.
It sounds like Raytown might have been that last stop as folks got out from Independence. I don't mean actual last stop, but one of the few stops that you have where you can get that wagon fixed.
Well, I think we were exactly the first one for sure. But yes, so William Ray, who had come himself from Ohio, he actually was going to get on the trail as well because he wanted to go to Oregon. So I think what happened is I think that he found a business opportunity here to set up this blacksmith shop and make some money. And that's what he did. So the blacksmith shop was about, I don't know, fourth of a block north from where we're sitting right now. There is a historical marker there that tells you that that's where his blacksmith shop was. Okay, so you've got your equipment that's being fixed here. Now we need a place to camp, and we need clean water. Clean water was precious because there wasn't very much. You're not on a big river around here. You're not going to get the water from the river. You get it from the streams, and a lot of the time the streams were polluted. And do you know what happened when they drank polluted water?
Surely dysentery as a kid who played Oregon Trail.
You get the idea. Well, it got it a little worse than that. It gave you cholera, and you usually died of it. Because now we don't really have medicine. We have holistic healing in those days. We don't have penicillin. We don't have any of that. So clean water was it was rare, and it was precious. So where did they camp? They left the blacksmith shop, went a few blocks from here to the Rice Tremonti home. Well, it was the rice plantation then. The Rices had come here in 1844, and they had a big house. It's the house that's still there right now.
Okay.
And they had acres and acres of land around them that were crops were being grown and animals were being raised. So they could leave here, go over to the rice plantation, pull their wagons up, and camp. And they could get all their supplies they needed, what they needed to feed their animals, what they needed to feed themselves. And then a few miles further was a place called Cave Springs. Cave Springs is still there too. And at this point, it's a walking trail and a nature thing. Have you ever been there?
I can go there now.
What?
I can go there now.
You can go there now,
really?
But don't do it right now, Zach, because we're... Don't leave me here, Zach.
Oh yeah, no, we'll finish the podcast.
Okay.
Oh
okay.
no, yeah.
So Cave Spring, the reason they called it Cave Spring is because the water literally came out of a cave, and it was crystal clear, and it was plentiful, for years and years and years. Very unusual. So what's not to like about this wide space in the road? We get our wagons fixed, we can camp, we can get our supplies, and we can get clean water. You're not going to find all that too many times.
Absolutely. And it sounds like, especially for that time, maybe you'll get one or two.
Well, of course, they went from here to Westport Landing, and then, on. I mean, I'm not sure. I know more about Raytown than I do the rest of it. But the thing is that this was a heck of a good jumping off space. Now, having said that, about halfway between Independence and Raytown, or Ray's blacksmith shop, there is a little cemetery. It is at Norfleet and 47th Street. It is called Campground Cemetery. And Campground Cemetery holds the people who died from starting in Independence, and they died before they even got here.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, this is tough. This is tough. You really needed to want to do this, to put yourself in for this, because we're taking our wife, our kids, our babies, everybody. And of course, it was the children that died.
Sure.
More often.
And it sounds like there was, for all those reasons, Raytown was kind of a good place for also industry, not just for the folks coming through, but to maybe set up shop, and to have those early bits of what becomes a town.
Sure.
When does it start to kind of pick up a little bit of steam in its story towards having a group of people that are staying here opposed to one or two, or not just one or two, but a handful of industry?
Well, I think probably in any land that's being settled like that, people all right, let's pretend like your family started out from independence, and maybe you were from Ohio or Kentucky or one of those states, and you got here, and there was a lot about the scenery and the way the land was formed and what have you, that reminded you of home. And a lot of people thought, oh, what's wrong with this? You know, do we really need to put our lives on the line to go any further? How about this?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happened. So some of the key families that we celebrate at the museum decided, okay, this is where we're going to put down our roots. So they would become farmers, or they would become freighters. A freighter on the wagon train were people that brought freight back and forth in eventual times.
Okay.
So people would decide, let's make this our home. Doesn't have a name. We're just here.
The space.
It's a space.
Yeah.
And so they started building homes, first of all, to be able to qualify for this land, which was free from the government. If you were the head of a household, 20 years old, male or female, you could you could stake a claim.
Mm-hmm.
And the caveat for that was, okay, we're going to put your name on this 160 acres, but in order to do that, you and your family or whoever else is with you there has to build a dwelling on it.
Okay.
You can make it out of logs, stones, whatever you can find. It's going to have to be what you find, because we don't have lumber stores. We have what's outside. And now you put that together and you make a dwelling on that place, and then you also need to improve the land. In other words, if the weeds are this high, which they would have been, you need to figure out how to So you have to improve it. Let's just say it.
Okay.
You have to improve the land. So I'm going to just name a couple of names: the Castle family, Cassell, the Robinson family, the Smith family. Were people who did just that. They found a reason they wanted to stay here, and they did stay here, and they stayed here, and they stayed here, and there were generation after generation of that family here, and there still are.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what does that what some of those families, almost founding families, almost sounds as
that's
though
what they are.
What has their impacts been beyond just, what are their legacy been beyond just their initial?
Let's say this. All right, so here we are. We're people are staying. They're building. They're improving their land. They're building church. I mean, more people are coming. They're staying. They're building churches. They're building schools. They're building all that infrastructure of what a town needs. And at one point, they wanted to. Kansas City was annexing a lot of land around here, and the Raytown people did not want to be annexed. They wanted to be able to make their own. Have their own government. They didn't want to be gobbled up by Kansas City. So
does this put us kind of in the 1960s time frame?
Yeah, well,
okay.
Yeah, or a little earlier than that, because it was 1950 when the city Raytown was incorporated. So this had been going on, like in the 1940s or what have you.
It sounds like there might have been a little bit of independent streak in Raytown folks, and not wanting to
these people that I'm telling you were in these families. They were strong. They had to be. And they did not want to be living under somebody else's rule. Because all these people, you have to understand, knew each other. Mm-hmm. They went to church with each other. They were neighbors to each other. The kids are marrying each other. And they're tight.
Yeah.
And they want to stay that way. So when it came time to either do something or be annexed, one of the founding families, and the man was called Leroy Cox. His family had come here in the I think 1840s, and he was already like second or third generation. He started petitions to have them signed, and the citizens signed petitions. And so on this day, in 1950, July 17th, on this day, the city was incorporated as Raytown. It's called Raytown because of the blacksmith shop. When people were coming across, you couldn't say, well, I'm going to Blue Springs, because that wasn't Blue Springs, and there wasn't a name for it. They referred to it just as a location, Ray's town, because Ray was the only guy they knew here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it came time to name it, well, how about Raytown?
What everybody else would already know.
That's right.
That's really, really quite incredible to hear his story, because to your point, this is a community that is next to two large communities. One being, the oldest community in Jackson County being Independence.
Yeah.
So to be able to continue to exist, to have that history, a strong history, says a lot about the folks that set this city on its course.
They were fierce.
Yeah.
They were fierce.
Sounds like they had to be. Yeah.
And in the beginning, the original territory was only 2 miles square.
Wow.
2 miles square. And the population was approximately 1,000, which is kind of...
That's a pretty densely populated space then.
That's true. But with subsequent annexations that began in 1953, okay, now we're in 1950, 1953, there were annexations that happened. I think there were about 4 or 5 of them. And they went from 1953 to 1975. The area was then expanded to 9.97 square miles. That's still not very big.
No, it's not. But again, that speaks to, at the same time as other municipalities are looking to expand, that this one municipality was not going to give up on its own future. And it's so important to how we're talking about Raytown today, that expansion and that just being so set on letting this town create its own destiny.
Yeah. I think people are pretty proud of that, and we will have to say, I mean, in being honest about the whole thing, Raytown has changed an awful lot in these years from 1950. My parents moved our family from Kansas City to the Raytown area in 1950. And even though we lived south of here on 83rd Street, we went to Raytown schools. And the closeness of the citizens in this little city was just endearing, and I'm sure I'm making it sound like nowhere else is. That's not true. I think you're from Belton, and I imagine it was the same way there. Mm-hmm. But we for instance, the school district has always been a big deal in Raytown. We've always had good schools, and we've always been proud of the schools. Athletics in the schools has been huge. The Friday night at the football field, everybody was there. I mean, everybody. The grandmother and the grandfather, everybody in between.
Whose kids might have graduated 10 years ago, but
that's right.
Sure.
But
it's a sense of community.
That was a place to be.
Yeah.
It was either that or the Blue Ridge roller rink. And those were Friday night things, know. Those, but it put everybody together, kind of. You either went to school with them, you went to church with them.
Yeah.
You went around the roller rink with them. I can't tell you how many people that I've found since I've worked at the museum that met their mates at the Raytown roller rink.
Yeah. Well, and I think that really just speaks to the intentional level of community that Raytown has been able to maintain. And like part of the story that I heard today that I didn't know before is that is just part of really part of the DNA of Raytown is that sense of community and having a space so that everyone that's part of this community can come together. I think of the Raytown Nights over the summer and the continued just investment, both time and money for folks to be able to have a place to go to be a part of Raytown.
And it certainly doesn't hurt that that we are this close to Kansas City. My goodness, I mean, are we going to ever compete with the entertainment venues of Kansas City? No. Even Lee Summit, which is real close. Lee Summit, bless their heart, they have done a wonderful job in Lee Summit, particularly in preserving their main business district. It's beautiful there, and it's thriving all the time. I am frankly jealous of that, but I can't make that happen all by myself here.
But you are contributing to it by having the society, the historical society, be a part of that living.
What I can do.
Yeah, being a part of the living history.
It's pretty little, but
it's a big part.
It's rewarding to me, and I think if I do anything, say anything, promote anything that helps this little city, I am always ready to do it.
Well, how about I put you on the spot now?
Oh, gosh, here we are.
And one thing so I love my wife dearly. She's not a big museum person, and I'm a read every plaque person at the museum.
She hates to go to
so
the
she's
museum
a little bit ahead of me whenever we go to a museum. But I hear that there's a good museum I should probably read every plaque at, and it might be here in Raytown. Can you tell me where I can, not just myself, but other folks that want to be a part of this story, to have that understanding, to just know about where they're living and part of the community that they're a part of? How can we be a part of the Historical Society, and if not just a volunteer, but maybe somebody that stops by and reads every plaque to see what's happening or has happened?
Well, your wife will be pleasantly surprised to know that we don't have a lot of plaques. We are more hands-on.
Okay.
You're going to have somebody like me talking her brains out instead of reading a lot of. We have plaques, but okay. So what you see at the Raytown Historical Society is how this city would have looked if you'd been one of the first settlers. From the little general store, we have vignettes, let's call it, as you go through our building, and one of them is the general store. Well, it's packed with things that you would buy in those days. You won't recognize any of them, Zach, because they don't mean anything to you. No, but they're charming, Mm-hmm. And then we have a replica of Ray's blacksmith shop with every tool known to man there, authentic tools. We have a 100-year-old plus schoolroom upstairs with all the little desks and the great books that they used to have, and it's a replica. We have a little parlor room. We have what we call the heirloom room that has a kind of a potpourri of a lot of things like the spinning wheels and those homemaking things that would bore you and me to death, because I'm not going to do that stuff. But
now, can I get a cold drink in the parlor room, or is that just?
No, you can get it in the kitchen.
Okay, all right.
You can get it in the kitchen. We're very friendly folk. Okay, so now. One of the things that we find is very, very popular because of the fact that so many families have continued to live here is what we call our alumni room. And in our alumni room, we have every yearbook that has ever been printed for Raytown High School and for Raytown South High School, for most of the middle schools. We have school photographs. Now, when you were a little kid in first grade, did they line you up on bleachers or anything and take pictures of your little faces?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, we have those going back to 1898.
almost every year.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. You've got to come see these old school photographs of these little kids standing there. Is amazing. I mean, they're farm kids.
Now,
Most of them don't have any shoes on.
Okay.
They have overalls on. Their faces are dirty.
Snippets in time. You can just watch.
Yeah. So you can just watch that whole thing, and then we have everything that talks about or shows you about Raytown. We have here, and we are the only place that has it. You're not going. I mean, Jackson County Historical Society. They have some things of ours, but this is the whole story right here. Okay, so we are at 9705 East 63rd Street. Our building was the first firehouse that was ever built in Raytown, and it was built in 1945. And in 1982, we were able to buy it. The Historical Society, was able to buy it. At that point, we started adding on to it and, restoring it into what we needed it to say. Mm-hmm. And we've been there ever since. We have about 235 members, and many of them, of course, live out of town, but we connect with them, through email and websites and all that. But we have programs. We have 4 programs a year that talk about historical things. For instance, the Rock Island Trail. We have we just had a program on that. A man by the name of Tom Banks researched that down to the last pebble, and it was so interesting how the trail or the rails came, which was a big boon here, and then it turned into the trails.
Yeah, and that reminds me that I know Vicki Turnbow spent a lot of time with you when looking at kind of redoing the Raytown Chamber offices and just trying to get an idea of what information she had that the Historical Society would like to have, because the Chamber kept a lot of history as well. And
they have been very, very kind to pass that on to us. So whatever they had, and Jeff could probably speak to this. I don't know that we've cleaned them out, but they have been very generous with us, as they always have. They've always worked closely with us.
Yeah, and that's part of like the living history, that like the story continues to be told. We continue to be learning new things about Raytown, and there's an opportunity for everybody to even just come by and learn something.
Yeah, we are.
One bit.
Unfortunately, we're only open Thursdays and Fridays. And why? Because we have to have volunteers to do that.
Absolutely.
And it's getting increasingly hard to find volunteers. Volunteers are they're totally necessary. We can't open if we don't have volunteers.
Well, as I think about this, and again, I think about touch points, opportunities for this has been such a great conversation. So I think if I'm not in this room with the 2 of us, 3 of us, then I'm thinking to myself, did I know that the Historical Society was around? Did I know that I could just stop by, and what days to stop by? So one more time, I said I was going to put you on the spot, and it seems like you're always prepared. Where can we find you? Where can if I'm just wanting to figure out what to come by and see? Is there any event? What's the next opportunity for me to?
Okay, the next opportunity you would have to walk in, other than if on a Thursday or Friday, you can walk in anytime you want to on that, and anything you want to see, we're going to show you. But the other things, as I said, we have these programs 4 times a year. And the next one is going to be, I think it's going to be really interesting. There is a man here in town that's been here for a long, long time, and his name is Ralph Monaco. You probably know him through the government. And he's also a lawyer, and he's also a Raytown guy. I mean, he went to Raytown schools.
Okay.
Yeah. His sister did, and they all went to the Raytown schools. He's great. He, as I say, he's a historical author, and he's written many, many books. One of the questions that comes up on our meetings a lot of times are, can you explain to us about what Order Number 11 was in the Civil War? Well, he knows everything there is to know about Order Number 11. Do you know what it is?
I am familiar with it.
Okay, well, just a fast little thing. In the Civil War, Missouri and Kansas was right in the thick of these things. And the General Ewing, who was the Union general, put out an order that anybody that they found in these counties right through here was a Southern sympathizer, that their crops would be burned, their homes would be burned, and their animals would be slaughtered. So, what it gave, you'll have to come to the talk to find this out, but they didn't give you very much warning. Let's say in 12 days, Mr. Sweet, you need to be either out of your house and gone, because it's probably going to get burned down around you. So that's a real good incentive to leave, and so people did, of course. And many places they burned to the ground. And there were two that I know of for sure, homes in Raytown that they did not burn, that were standing in the Civil War, and they're still standing. One is the home it's on 63rd and I think Hadley. It was owned by the Dehoney family, and he was one of the first settlers here. And the other home was the rice plantation that we've already talked about. And those two houses, they didn't burn. So the story goes, believe it or not, I wasn't around then. I know that's going to be hard. No, it's hard to believe. I wasn't here then, but this would be in the years about Civil War, 1861 to 65, I think. The reason they say that those homes weren't burned was because of the people that owned them were Masons.
Okay, and and especially during that time, an organization.
Was that a big deal? I don't know.
Yeah. It's and I didn't want to mess up when you asked me. I was like, I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but my understanding, just being especially MIZ, understanding that just the border war history, that the Order 11 just really was a match, and so that was, I couldn't think of a better teaser for that upcoming event. When is that event again?
That is on August the 5th. It's on a Monday. It's at 10 o'clock. So this is something we call ambassadors meetings. And so Monday at 10 o'clock, not every Monday, but we announce that through our website, which I will tell you about. You come to the museum, you sit down, we teach you whatever it is the subject that day. Our ladies make homemade refreshments for you
on a Monday morning.
On a Monday morning, and you just it's about an hour's worth, and people love it.
I can think of worse ways to start my week. So on August the 5th, we're going to start our week with the Raytown Historical Society and Museum. We're going to learn about Order 11 and how that in particular, what that looked like in Raytown. And so anybody who's interested, please take time to go to the Historical Society's website, which is,
oh gosh, you're going to ask me to repeat that, huh? Well, it would be Raytown Historical Society. Where would I have written that, Zach? Right here.
Yeah, there's a nice. It's weird. It just appeared at the bottom of the screen there.
What? Are you kidding?
Yeah, just right there, the website. So all of our friends watching,
Are you
see
kidding?
that
You're kidding
bar
me.
right there.
Who's kidding me?
And Charlotte, this has been wonderful. Sincerely.
Wait a minute, is it? Are you kidding me?
Well, we'll put it on the video.
Okay. Well, I found it.
Okay.
It's our website is RaytownHistoricalSociety.org.
All right.
That was
I was going to say .com, so I'm glad you checked.
Very hard for me. Okay.
RaytownHistoricalSociety.org.
Yes, and that will show you. It'll show you a lot of what we have. It'll tell you all about whatever events are coming up, when, how, what.
Love it. I love it. No, I sincerely have really appreciated this conversation, to learn so much, but it's been a pleasure to sit here and just talk with you. Honestly, we probably could have had a 3-part episode just talking about the history of Raytown and all the tangents that we did pretty good. We didn't go too far off. So I look forward to another conversation.
That is so unlike me not to get too far off of the. Yes, well,
we'll have to have you come back.
Pleasure. I've heard so many good things about you, and they're all true.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for listening to Talk Raytown. If you haven't heard, there is the Raytown Historical Society, and I, for one, am very excited to go check them out. Until next time, I'm Zac Sweets. Take care.